All turn their backs on me. Why? Am I not made of the same mortal dust as thee?
Mercy.
Thank you for joining us on the Down and Cut. Today, my guest is Ron Ford, who is an actor, director, and writer known for his work on films like Alien Force, Dead Time Tales, and Hollywood Mortuary. With a career spanning decades, he has become a versatile filmmaker, celebrated for his contributions to the indie horror and sci-fi genres. Welcome to the Down and Cut, Ron. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
I am excited to talk to you because looking at your IMDb, you have vast credit. I think you probably have the most I've ever seen anyone in the indie realm.
Yep.
An actor in 88 projects, director in 40, writer in 38, producer in 29, editor even in 11, special effects, cinematography. I mean, it just, it keeps going. Camera, electrical, art department, additional crew, casting, editorial, transportation, played yourself, and archive footage. I mean, you have experience. So let's dive in. And I like to ask everyone, how did you get started? What sparked this passion of yours to get into the indie film industry?
Sparked my passion. Growing up in the 60s during the monster kid boom, as they call it now. Go away. Sorry, I've got dogs. I was one of those kids who grew up just devouring monster magazines and watching everything genre related I could on television, and always had dreams of making films. We made some Super 8 films when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And that was my first filmmaking. My brother lost all of them. I'd love to see them again, but that'll never happen.
Oh.
Anyway, then there was a long period after that I didn't do any film stuff because it was too expensive, and
Sure.
That time in your life when you're trying to be an adult and getting married and all that stuff interfered. But I was always writing. I was always writing scripts, and when I lived in Arizona, I got some work in a transportation and film productions. There were a lot of films made there. I worked on a lot of different things.
Wow.
And I would give my scripts, leave it in the producer's box, And normally, I'd clean up the set after the wrap and find my script. Many times that happened, where they didn't even bother, just chucked it in the can. But one time, it was a movie called Red Surf, George Clooney, and the producer was Greg Stims. I gave him a script that was called at that time it was called E-Movie, but it was a comedy about a gang of misfits making a horror movie in the 1950s and running us afoul of McCarthyism and unions and stuff, trying to do everything on the cheap. Anyway, he said that script was the best thing he'd read. That he so rarely read a script where he could put it on the page without any changes. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it was quite a compliment. And he said that he didn't want to make this movie because Matinee had just come out and tanked. Great movie though, but it didn't make a lot of box office. So he said, I'm gonna hire you to write something for me. And a year later, he did just that. And I wrote a script called The Fear, which was a big hit on VHS during the 90s, about 95.
Wow.
There was a sequel too. I had nothing to do with that though. Someone else wrote and directed it. But that was my break. And then I was writing for a small company called Wildcat Entertainment that made micro budget action films. I wrote some scripts for them, and eventually that led to my first directing job, which was Alien Force.
High school, you started with what is it, 8mm?
Yeah, Super 8.
Right? You were behind the camera.
Yeah.
Like what was it that said, "Hey, let's make a movie"?
My brother and I were obsessed with movies, especially horror movies, monster movies. Natural progression from that.
And that was it. Were you writing then? You started writing then?
Yeah, I mean, we wrote these silly little scripts for our films. They weren't much to them, but I remember the first one was something of the werewolf.
So let me ask you this: when your progression of writing when you're in high school, and then you actually start to see the formatting of writing a script, because it's pretty
yeah.
There's guidelines in writing a script. I mean, I've learned that myself. How did you learn that? How did you start transforming your scripts into those outlines and the way it should be as far as the spacing and all that?
Research. I was told that most producers won't even look at the script if it's not in proper format, and they rarely looked at them anyway. But anyway, it paid off eventually. But yeah, there was a thing I don't remember the writer's name, but he wrote books on screenwriting, and he had a pamphlet or like a peachy folder. It had these loose leaves in it that gave you everything you needed to know about structuring your screenplay for
Nice.
for the page. Not.
It sounds like a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
If it's in a PG. What? So your first gig was The Fear. That sounds like really exciting. You wrote for somebody. It went into VHS. It was successful. How did that feel to you? What did that do to your emotions and your whereabouts of like, oh, I can do this?
It was the best day ever. It was like incredible gratification that it's in someone else's. That maybe I do have what it takes, and I'm not just some guy who's writing stuff that'll never get made in his basement. But so yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence, and it was just like I said, it's a validation of my talents.
Would you say that up until that point, you were already making home movies or videos and short films and stuff like that, right? And writing scripts on top of that. What did anything change from that moment, or were you just steadily going regardless?
I became, I don't know, I was always doing this stuff, but I guess I began to do it more seriously.
Yeah.
It seemed like about that period, just a few years before that, I had started working in film, transportation, film movie crews. That was a big step up too. It was like I felt like I was part of it, part of the process, and I was always wanted to be a film director.
So you basically just allowed it to absorb your whole being, your life. You're like, all right, I'm in it now, 100%. I'm going to be on set.
To the detriment of my marriage and other things. But yeah, I did.
So in your experience with all the films that you've directed and written and been part of being on set, what makes a good actor?
Someone who is not acting. Like Burt Reynolds says in one movie, says, never let him catch you acting. And that's the best advice I've ever heard about acting. If you're trying to portray an emotion that's going to be phony, you have to just be honest with yourself. And you can tell right away if someone's honest or not in their work.
When you're working with actors and you're seeing that you're not getting the performance that you need, what do you do? How do you coach them?
Right. Beg, Not really. We sit down and talk about it. I just made a film this last weekend, and I had to replace an actor at the last minute. This guy didn't have much time at the lines or anything, and he was very, very nervous. We shot
Oh, wow.
one of his scenes. One of his he was in a lot of it, but there were two big dialogue scenes. We shot the first one, scene 7, on Saturday, and it was just clear it's not working. So I told we're going to do that scene tomorrow. You have more time to work with the lines, and we discussed the character, and it came out okay.
Okay.
Things happen when you're in micro budget movies that you can't pay people or can't pay them much, and
Yeah.
that was a big blow losing had the best actor in town in the role, and he just couldn't get out of work until last second.
Oh, so the actor couldn't get out of work, and so he had to recast his role because he wasn't available.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
he was sick about it too, but he had to keep his job, so
Yeah,
and that.
yeah. I think that's the toughest part, honestly. Is you always hear the stories of people working part-time jobs or service type industry jobs, so they can get out of it in a crunch to go and be on set.
Yeah,
I think that's the hardest thing that I think a lot of people try to find, that how do I manage this balance?
yeah.
What so I don't you already said that you watched a lot of horror movies when you were a kid. My question was, what drew you to the indie horror genre as a child? Like, what was it that you found it so fascinating that you just kept on going, hey, let's keep on going and making stuff? Was it because of the scare factor?
No, I'm never really scared. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's just fun. I mean, and we were all obsessed with monsters in the early '60s. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
it was what pre-teenagers did. They bought monster magazines and went to movies. And so, growing up in that milieu, I don't even know that I ever considered not. It just seemed like I was born with a taste for this stuff. And like it's not all. It's not still that way. I back then anything genre related I would watch it. Now I'm pretty darn picky, and some of my favorite movies mostly are not genre films.
Yeah.
I'm a student of American directors and world directors too, but I love John Ford and Orson Welles, and, the usual
Yeah.
suspects.
Oh yeah.
so
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
yeah, I guess my taste for genre stuff has decreased over the years. It's now about the work, a good movie that has something to say and can move you. It's far more important to me than having a monster. In fact, most horror films now, I find them dreadful. Um, I don't mind violence. There's plenty in some of my films, but so many movies now, it's all about everybody talks about the kill scene, the original kill scene. That's not enough of a reason to make a picture in my book. And
Right.
I'm just tired of seeing knives going into people and stuff. Then that's the payoff. That's what the movie's about.
Yeah. What do you focus on then?
Story.
What draws you in? Story.
Yeah, it's always about the story and trying to say something. And I was gonna,
Yeah.
and the characters. I want the story elements to come out of the characters, so nothing feels like it's done for effect. I hate when things
Hmm.
are done just for, well, you can tell that just for effect. It's all got to blend, mesh together to form something, some greater whole of the parts.
So now let's take a look at a recent film that you're just got completed, Frankenstein's Confession,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a horror genre.
Yeah.
So let's look at this movie that you just did based on and compare it to where you started. How has things changed for you in the evolution of time? when it comes to that genre.
Oh, considerably. If I had made a Frankenstein movie in the '90s or the '80s, it would have been, Boris Karloff inspired. But this film is not a horror film. It's a debate between a priest and the Frankenstein monster, he's been mortally wounded, and he had all these questions, theological questions in the book that he was always wrestling with. What's his place in the universe? Why is God made him different than everyone else? Blah blah blah. So he learned how to read from Paradise Lost. He hides out in that cabin, and there's a French girl there, and she's being taught English. It probably wasn't English, probably Swiss, but it's Geneva. But anyway, that's how he learns to read and write. So that's his whole total reference to literature is Paradise Lost. So in my story, I changed the ending of the novel because I don't have the expenses to go to the North Pole and shoot all that.
Oh yeah.
But so he's shot by the doctor and kills him, but he's wounded and he knows he's dying, so he's going to go find a priest and confess. He wants to get absolution and he wants to be given a name because he never had one. And so that's what the film is. He goes to this church and has a debate with the priest, and at the end he concludes, that you be quiet. That there's no magic there. It's empty, and so he has no reason to kill the priest like he's considering at one point, but because we're all the same. We're all dust.
Interesting. So, I mean, you took a monster element, right?
Yeah.
But instead of doing the typical stereotypical monster things, you still had that storyline and just brought a different perspective to the storyline of what if, right?
Yeah. Well,
is that what I'm saying?
It's more coming out of the novel though than the movies. It's a great book. I've read it many times. Yeah, this is an idea I had for a long time. Originally, I wanted to do a full-length play where the framing device was Victor looking for the monster north, and then he runs into this colony of lepers, and he tells them his story, and that's then it's all dramatic. That's the play, is telling the story, and then at the end, he's got this hood on. The monster comes out. He's been living there, and he says, "There's no need for us to kill each other anymore. You're the same as me." Frankenstein takes off his hood, and he's become a leper, so he's hideous and deformed too.
How many plays have you written?
Well, none.
Oh, okay.
Something I toyed with. I couldn't really get it to work. I was too young, but I mean, I've written some short plays that have been done locally and stuff. But
okay, so you have written plays.
I love theater. That's where my whole acting experience comes from. Is I do a lot of community theater.
Your films kind of often blend horror and dark humor. How do you balance those two elements in your storytelling?
I got the noisiest animals. How do I balance them? I don't really. I think about it that way. I just that's the stuff that comes out of my head. So most of my films, or my early ones anyway, I consider them total comedies, even though there's horror elements. Hollywood Mortuary is a comedy. Crawling Brain. I felt in those days that we're making these micro budget movies that it's probably not going to really scare anybody,
right?
Because we don't have all the professional equipment, so we can make everything look perfect. But that at least I'd make them entertaining. And there's always humor in my work until recently. I'm pretty dark.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Just like the one I like, Frankenstein. There's no humor in it at all. And the one I just finished shooting is called The Trigger Finger. It's a modern retelling of The Monkey's Paw, but it's instead of a mummified monkey's paw, it's a trigger finger from a sniper in Afghanistan. And anyone who possesses the finger, any Christian who possesses it, will get one wish. But of course, the wishes always backfire on them.
What do you edit on?
I used Movavi.
Favi.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard of that one.
it's a fairly simple one. It's which is good for me. So
Yeah.
I'm not a big tech guy, and there's such a learning curve on most of those things. I've been done on different things. I haven't been able to edit all of my films, but that's what I'm using now.
Very cool. When you're making a film, I mean, just like you said, they're not, it's the horror genre, but they're not scary. Who are you making it for then? Who's the audience? Who's your demographics?
Uh, People who like, we're talking about the early stuff. People who enjoy, fun movies like full moon movies. They're more in
Yeah.
that vein, I think, than serious horror films. Although a couple of them came pretty close.
Can I say campy? Are they kind of like
They
campy horror films, but they're entertaining at the same time? What what pushes you to continue to create? What is it?
I don't know, but it's more important to me than money and anything else. I
Yeah.
just can't stop. And now that I'm retired, it's necessary to keep me
Sure.
busy and not get bored with my life. I don't want to sit in front of the TV. I
Yeah.
loved to do most when I was 12, but not so much now.
I think there's a drive, a thread within a lot of us creatives that if we're not creating something, we're not alive. We don't feel like we're doing anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I think that's mainly our audience. Whoever watches this is going to be those people who are like, how do I do something? How do I get that ambition? I know for myself, I wanted to be a graphic designer was my goal. And then I started off because someone said, "Hey, we need extras." And that was it. I was off to the races after that. So, as someone who's written, directed, and acted in films, how does wearing multiple creative hats influence your filmmaking process?
I don't know. Well, I like control. I mean, I wrote a couple of movies that were made by other people, The Fear and Vampire Resurrection, and they just were not the movies that I wrote. The director of The Fear was obsessive about rewriting things up to the last second. And Denise Duff's film, the vampire film, I had a beautiful script I really liked called um, what was it called? Song of the Vampire. And then they just started ad libbing stuff and throwing in all kinds of nonsense. I had a nice scene where I get my throat cut in it, but it was not the movie I wrote. So I wanted control. I had
Yeah,
to be the guy who writes and directs. So
yeah,
that's what I've been doing ever since. It's why don't have big Hollywood careers, because I choose to make micro budget films that I have the means for and I can total control.
yeah. There's something to have that control. I've had that experience too, where I think we just made our first or second short film, and I wrote it, directed it. I was a cinematographer, and I edited it.
Good.
And it was because I knew exactly what I wanted. And now the script, I handpicked the actors, and there were some times where, you know, they would be like, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And I was okay with that. As long as the story the beats were hitting what I wanted and it worked. And so I understand where you're coming from, because I often wonder, because I've interviewed other writers, and the question was always, well, what if you did, just like you said Fear they didn't change anything, right? They were like, this is perfect.
The Fear?
Yeah.
No, they changed everything.
Oh, they changed everything. Okay.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
director was constantly rewriting stuff right up to the last minute, which probably was really
Wow.
hard for the actors. But
Yeah.
a lot of my stuff was in there, but not really. That's the thing that made me want to get to have more
To
control
do
of
your
that,
own.
and the experience with Full Moon writing that vampire movie.
I know you've been commissioned to write some stories and stuff like that on books. What if someone commissioned you to write a script? but knowing is in the back of your head, do you think, oh, they'll probably change this or they'll probably manipulate that, or is that always in the back of your head?
Sure. And see, it's so you don't put your don't put your soul into it because it's not gonna come out how you want it to. It's a job of work at that point.
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, you hone your craft. It's hard to do whether you have the passion for the story or not.
Well, I always say that editing really creates the story. Have you, from writing it, and you hand off the script, they film it and they change some things. Have you ever watched the finished product?
Oh, sure.
And do you ever measure how far off they were?
Well, I try not to think about it. I guess I never
Yeah.
thought. Well, I think that the vampire one veered way more from my concept than the fear did.
Interesting.
And they called it Vampire Resurrection. I had this, what I thought was a lyrical title, Song of the Vampire,
Yeah.
and they changed it to Vampire Resurrection. Like first time I heard that, I was like, what vampire isn't? It's
Right.
redundant.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. So it's all about perceptions and what people are thinking. Like, I mean, I don't know. Did people change titles to go, hey, this is going to sell more?
Yeah, that's what
Or
they
this
think
is
about.
going to sound better, roll off your tongue better or something? I don't know. Song of the Vampire sounds pretty enticing for me. So can you share a particular challenging moment? I mean, it sounds like you just did that shaped your approach to directing and writing. And I think, based on your examples, it sounds like you've basically said control.
Yeah.
That was probably the most challenging thing I could think of. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Well, it's all a challenge. I mean, especially when you're making them out of your own pocket or very little money you got from a Indiegogo campaign or something. You have to well, it starts in the writing. I always write knowing that with stuff I know I can get hold of, or locations and what kind of effects I can do and stuff like that. Um, so that very much goes into it. But on this level, I mean, I'm writing, acting, producing, directing, and then everything but shoot it and score it. So everything's a challenge. I mean, you got to find a way to juggle all that stuff.
A core team that you work with when it comes to cinematography and scoring?
Yeah, basically, they're not always the same people, but yes, Larry Peterson shot almost all of my films the last few years. Um, my effects guy was my best friend Mitch. Um, he uh, he was just an amazing artist. He passed away a few years ago, so I had to find new people.
Oh, sorry to hear
Fortunately,
that.
as Sean Shea was a friend of his who was extremely talented as well. So he's been doing the last couple of movies. Yeah, I
That's
did.
awesome.
One of my films is The Raven, Ravin apostrophe. It's an animated, like it's a poem I wrote in the '80s, a parody of the Raven, Poe's Raven, where the narrator of the poem he he gets tired of being morose and and forlorn, and so he decides to change his life and go dancing. Puts on his dancing shoes, answer the door, and then every time he goes to leave, the Ravens poops on him. So anyway, it's won more awards than anything else I've made. But Mitch made these puppets. They're the level of like a Rankin Bass. Uh, that's what I was going for. I wanted to make it into a Rankin Bass Halloween special feel to it.
Yeah.
Um, I love the film a lot, but it was all Mitch.
Did you?
The big,
So you submitted it to film festivals,
oh
though?
yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done well, better than anything else I've done. In fact,
Interesting.
if you want to watch it on Tubi, there's a collection of my animated films. It's called Raven, the animated films of Ron Ford.
Yep. We will link those in the show notes.
Okay.
100%. Yep. What has been most surprising when it comes to your films in front of an audience and critics? what was a reaction that really surprised you, and how did it impact you?
A lot of people, a lot of critics aren't, or a lot of people just watching, they're not taking the film as seriously as I did. And they're like one Deadly Scavengers. Everybody said, asked me if there was a lesbian moment at the end of the movie. And I'm like, no, it never occurred to me. Either I have problems communicating, or, people just see what they want to see. Probably a little
Yeah.
both. Um,
What was something that was a positive reaction?
well, the Fear was such a big hit. It had a soundtrack album that was a big hit as well. Not my kind of
Oh,
music; it's all horror rap, but
yeah.
it did really well. That's a big positive. Having Greg Sims actually get back to me after reading one of my scripts and flipping over it, that was a great moment. There was a review of, I think it was, it might have been Dead Time Tales, one of those early films, and he makes a listing of all these things he saw wrong with the film. He says, "I can accept this, and I can accept this, and accept this, but when it comes to this, no, Ron, no." I'll never forget that. It
Oh,
was a
interesting.
scathing review, but it was hilarious. So I love that.
How do you handle criticism like that?
You just go on to the next thing. I mean, a lot of people are judging it on based on the budget and not seeing the complex story elements and things that I worked so hard over. There was another
Yeah.
similar incident with these guys had a podcast where they review movies, bad movies, or in their opinion, bad movies. And
Yeah.
and their guest one week was Patton Oswalt, and they watched my film, Alien Force.
Oh,
And he trashed it, but that was cool because it was Patton Oswalt and it was funny. Um,
so any review is a good review, really. It's getting you out there in the limelight,
I
right?
got an okay review from Joe Bob Briggs for Alien Force. Um, the main actor, and it was not much of an actor, but he's a kickboxer from Australia, named Tyrone Wade, and he kept making fun of him, like, "Think of the name, son. Think of the name." I think he was implying that it's a black guy's name and a white guy has. But that's it.
Now,
Seemed obsessive.
you were in Spokane, but you said when you were making films in the beginning, you were in Arizona.
Yeah, when I first started working on film crews, yeah, I was living in Tucson then.
What brought you to Washington?
Well, I'm from Washington.
Oh, okay.
I grew up not here, but on the other side of the state, and my ex-wife was from Spokane, and she's the one who wanted to leave LA really bad. It was the hardest thing I ever did because
Oh, you were in LA
oh
too.
yeah, I lived there for 15 years, and I loved it. I love everything about it. And she just was homesick. I pretty much had to choose between the marriage and Hollywood, and so I chose the marriage, which was foolish because it didn't last much longer. But anyway.
So, note to our viewers: if you're in a relationship, make sure that your partner has the same goal mindset
Yeah,
that you do,
very
so
much.
you
Yeah,
don't. Yeah, because I think there's everybody has their own passion about certain things and aspects, and it's like I think as an example, if I'm not a hiker, but I'm dating a woman who loves to hike, it's probably not going to work out because she'll always be hiking and I'll be staying at home and there's going to be a rift. So I
yeah,
totally makes sense. So it is important to find someone who appreciates the same things that you do.
yeah.
100%.
And she used to work on my films, scheduling and stuff, and I don't think she ever much enjoyed it. My current relationship, she she not only accepts it, she thinks it's really cool that I write
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
make movies.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
years ago
That's
started writing books too. That's the stories that I had in my head that I know I'm not going to live long enough or have enough money to make into movies, so get them out there in
yeah.
form of books.
Yeah. We have links. We're going to put those links in the show notes as well. When it comes to budget constraints on filmmaking, how do those limitations kind of spark creativity in your work?
Oh, very much. You have to find a way to do things. You have to think out of the box. Trigger Finger we shot last weekend. The scene where the guy's standing at a grave, and then we he, and the grave starts to move. There's someone coming out of it, And I was thinking that we can't go dig up a hole. We can't use a real cemetery. So, and plus we're on such a tight schedule with it. Um, that's another story. I had a different location. I was going to shoot it over 2 weekends, but I lost that location, and so I had to shoot at my house, and that requires boarding our dogs, which is expensive. And so it became a 1 weekend shoot. Anyway, we were in my front yard, and I have this garden statue of a cherub that you've seen in Frankenstein, by the way.
Yeah, I saw the blood.
Yeah, it was made for Frankenstein. But I used that. We had that in the foreground. The actor, standing uh, in front of a tree in my yard, and that was our cemetery. I've used some stock footage to set the tone. But when he looks down at the grave, uh, Tom Stever, so a good friend who works on a lot of my stuff, he made it out of styrofoam. This one of those gravestones that's flat,
Yeah.
flat on the ground. I thought we could fake that, but better than a headstone. He did a great job on it, and I bought some realistic turf and put it on a piece of wood with the with that plaque there, and had drilled a hole in the bottom of the wood. So when we shot it, it would take a stick and poke it up through that hole so the ground starts to pulse.
I would have never thought of that. So it came out okay.
Yeah, it really looked good, actually. I haven't cut the scene together yet, but I mean, it looked good when we shot.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. It's just being creative in every single way. Like, so I you'll appreciate this, Ron.
Okay.
My movie, I had a neck bomb. Okay. And so I took a dog collar that lit up. I took a clock, that cheap clock, and then it was one of those shock collars.
Yeah.
So I took the innards out to make it look like it was being constructed.
So you don't get shot.
There's a battery pack right here for the clock, and then that was it. And then duct tape, just to make it look like a neck bomb with some wires. Got to make sure you have the wires sticking out, right? And that was it, because I was like, well, how am I going to do this? How is this even going to work? Oh, and I had a bicycle. I don't think the light works anymore, but a little flashing light to indicate, oh, it's armed, And then this thing lights up, but during shooting, I forgot to turn it on. So continuity, the whole film, I couldn't have it on. So yeah, but yeah, definitely creativity and limitations really make you start thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think we can all appreciate that. If you don't have the funds to just buy something that's already pre-made, you got to build something what you have.
Yep.
What would you think is the most overlooked aspect of filmmaking that inspires filmmakers that they should pay more attention to? Don't say story.
I mean, I don't like movies that are about moments. Here's a cool moment, but they don't have a story to hook it all together. It's all for effect.
Yeah.
I have filmmaker friends like that. Their stuff is incredibly slick, but it's always they make Batman films, and they did a parody of John Wick, called it John Thick. Here's Chubby.
Yeah, I know who those people are.
Oh, you do?
I interviewed Caden. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but well, I probably shouldn't talk about it since his name. but to me, his stuff is very entertaining.
Yeah.
It's how you going to sell it.
Yeah.
Copyrighted characters. And
oh, right. Yeah. I mean, you're going off a parody off of something that already exists.
Yeah.
Right. Is what they did on that.
I mean, if he did an original story, he'd be he'd have something.
I think they are.
They are? Good.
Recollection. Have you heard of Recollection?
I have not.
Okay. You should check that out. That's an original story. It's a feature.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. I think you'll be proud of him.
Well, he's an A.
Yes. What else? What else other than story? And I mean, it is. What are the things that you would think that the younger generation should take note on filmmaking?
You're gonna hate me, but they should work on that script, get that script tight,
Yeah.
before going anywhere.
Okay, I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole with you then. What makes a script tight? What makes it pop? What makes it solid? Can you give me like three things that come to mind that you would say really kind of elevate a story in a script? What is it?
Well, first, structure. Um, that's the most important thing, and then have something to say. You're not just throwing rehashes of things you've already seen. Um, and what else? Let's see. Uh, Spare dialogue. Don't have big speeches, and you don't want people to explain exposition. You got to find a visual way to set things up. Um, that kind of stuff.
Which is much different than writing a book,
Yes, very much.
right?
Booking
I mean, that's like
everything.
180.
Yeah, it took me a long time to make that transition to be able to write long form prose that I was happy with.
So, is it, let me ask you this, when it comes to a book and it comes to a script and dialogue, how do you write? Is there a huge difference in that? Or is this, is it going to be the same dialogue as it is in the book?
I always thought it was one of my stronger things. My dialogue, I always felt I was pretty good at it, and not much better now than I was. I read some of my old stuff and cringe, but yeah, I mean, and my books are dialogue heavy, like pages of people talking in them. So because I'm coming at it as a screenwriter, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very little difference between the two in my books. But I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
you don't want it to be 90 pages of dialogue either. It might as well be a play.
How do you feel about the rise of streaming platforms? Like, the fear was on VHS, and we fast forward to today where there are no VHS tapes anymore.
Yeah,
There's no Blockbuster, right? How
right.
do you feel about it and how it's transformed with technology and especially genres like horror and sci-fi?
Well, I love it. I mean, the more markets available, the more places to get your movie seen. No, no problem with that. And it's also at a period in history where anybody can go make a movie. It doesn't cost that much. You can do it with your phone. Um, Stuff that would have, like 30 years ago would have been impossible for amateurs to do. Um, the technology has gotten easier, made it all easier and cheaper. And anybody who wants to make a movie and doesn't now is just, not trying hard enough, I think.
So here's a trick question for you. This is the last question, the last main one. If you could revisit any of your past films with today's technology and resources, which one would you choose and why?
Well, the one nearest and dearest to me is Hollywood Mortuary. That was the first one that I made. That was from just for me. As I wasn't writing a genre picture for Wildcat or something like that. It's a movie I wanted to make, and that's when I go back to it. We get some better period detail and some better actors, including myself. That was quite bad.
Is that something that you've considered?
I've thought about it a lot, yeah, but I wrote the novel Hollywood Mortuary, which I think is
Yeah,
the
well,
most popular book. But yeah, I'd love to, but I just need more money than I
it's
put
always
together
about
to do
money.
that. And there's always some new project in mind anyway, so I haven't spent a lot of
Yeah.
time.
What is next for you? And you said you just wrapped on a film. What is it called? The Monkey's Paw?
And there's the trigger finger.
Trigger Finger. Trigger Finger. When is that going to come out? When are we expecting that?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't have a home yet, so
Okay.
there's no deadline on it. So take my time. And probably in a couple of weeks, I'll have a finished film. It's only like 10 minutes long, and I'll put
Okay.
it in festivals, and hopefully something will happen there. And if not, what I eventually do with most of my short films is when I gathered enough of them, I make an anthology, and then shoot a
Oh
wraparound
yeah.
segment and connect the story somehow. Like one just now being released by SRS Ron Bonk out of New York is my last anthology was um, Edge of Chaos. It's 5 short science fiction films. Um, One Frankenstein's in there too. Uh,
Nice.
and the wraparound story was an idea that Mitch Tyner had, my late friend, that he gave me, which I thought was always a fascinating idea. I was trying to figure out how to use it. So it's a psychiatrist talking to a terminal science fiction writer, and her stories come up in their conversations, and that sets up each film. But that should be out very soon.
Oh, it
But
sets it up each film, so they're all connected.
yeah, kind of. I mean, they're supposedly stories from her book, her collected short stories.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that right? It reminds me of what are the TV shows that Elvira was on back in the day, where they had it was a TV show, but it was like it was kind of like Twilight Zone. You know, Twilight Zone had separate
Oh
stories,
yeah,
right?
it's,
But it was all the same
uh,
theme.
yeah, they're all in the same
It was a
genre
bit,
anyway.
yeah, yeah.
What Civil Fire was in? I don't know that.
I don't remember. I was trying to think of Tales of the Crypt. Maybe
Oh,
that's what it is.
okay, yeah, that was on HBO for years. That's a good show.
Wasn't yeah? That had it had a bunch of different shorts, right?
Uh-huh.
But it was like a theme of all the genre was horror, but there was I don't know if they all I can't remember if they all tied together or not.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, even more so would be the current Creep Show series. They have at least 2 stories in each segment, each
Oh,
episode,
interesting.
and they're all kind of linked by the not the Crypt Keeper, but the Creep. It's sort of like the Crypt Keeper. This is skeleton.
Now your stuff is on Tubi. How is it? Is it hard to get on Tubi? Is it hard to get distributed on there, or do you have? How does that work?
Yeah, you have to have an aggregator. You know, they're not going to just look at your film and send it to them. So I use Film Hub, which is
Hmm.
they're very demanding about everything. I've had several of them turned down, uh, but they will actively take your film and try and get it on different platforms. And they're the ones that got some of my films on Tubi. There's a couple of them on there. There's also Game Camera, which is
Game camera.
a film. Several years ago, we made a short film, my friends and I, for a horror festival called Game Camera. It was so good. We were all so happy with it. The story had room for developing, so we turned it into a feature, and that is now
Wow,
on Tubi. About,
very cool.
about these,
Is it worth it? I mean, is it paying? Does it kick in some cash to you, or what? Or is it just notoriety?
yeah, I'm more concerned about people seeing the films than making any serious money at it. I mean, it trickles in. It's not much.
Yeah,
I make more from
yeah.
acting. I get residual checks all the time for that,
Oh, that's awesome.
but it
How,
doesn't
how
stop
can
there.
so what in acting residual checks? You basically have to be union,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Get union and then get in some like Z Nation. I know you were part of that too, right?
I was on that 5 times. I got my SAG card off of Z Nation.
Oh,
I got a great role
congratulations!
in one episode in the 3rd season.
Nice. Well, Ron, I've enjoyed this conversation. I have 3 more
All
questions
right.
to ask you. The first one is, what's your favorite tech? You know, coming from Super 8 camera, what do you use now that you find that it's very valuable when it comes to the film industry, filmmaking, the process? Like, is it what's your favorite tech?
Well, I'm not a tech guy. I hire
I know.
a DP and he has his gear, and that's how I've always done it. But
Yeah.
shooting now on a high-end Canon video camera.
Okay.
If you could afford it, a red camera, something like that would be ideal. But
You like reds.
no, it's a damn good camera.
All right. What are your thoughts on AI when it comes to the film industry?
Scary, creepy. You know, it's it's you're not going to know if something's created by somebody or by a machine. the manipulating things that I think could be used in a lot of very harmful ways. And as far as in movies, um, I don't know. There hasn't probably been a lot of it yet done in films, but like for effects and stuff, I would have no problem with that. But if they're writing scripts,
Yeah.
I've experimented in trying to get an idea for my next film. So I wrote down these elements for my next book actually, and see what story I came up with. And it was unreadable. It was just dreadful. I mean, I couldn't use anything out of it. I mean, there's no real art or passion in it. So I don't see it as a great tool. But who knows? Someone else more clever than me will find some brilliant use for it in some movie. I'm sure.
Which, then I mean, the fear factor gets higher and higher and higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get to that point of like, who made this? Is it? Did we have a soul make it?
Yeah.
Or a computer?
I mean, now it's pretty easy to tell, but it's going to get better.
Yeah, I've seen some few AI commercials or prototype commercials for different companies, and I'm just like, there's little nuances that you can go, okay, this was AI, but most of it you're like, what? It looks like an actor promoting the product.
The work of art, when it really works, it's about the human factor, and that's one thing you're never going to get out of AI.
Right.
They should be exploring our world and us and how humans interact with each other, and the movie should be about people first, monsters.
Which is why dialogue is so important.
Yes.
That's the key, right? Well, Ron, thank you so much for being on the Downey Cut. How can people reach you?
I'm on Facebook. Search for Ron Forward. They can email me at fordius@aol.com. Yes, I'm still on AOL. FORDIUS.
And we will link that in the show notes. We'll link your books and your films and the Tubi channel. Well, thank you, Ron. I appreciate your time.